Hi there. Welcome to Bible/Chat. Jason, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah, we're a little late on this one. We should have had this already
That's
up.
fine.
But
We are a little late, though.
I blame you.
Yes, as you should.
I agree. Anyway, so we were talking about creation, and what was our discussion about creation last time? We talked about how the Bible teaches that the world was
6
created
days.
6-day creation.
Yep, not
and then,
ages.
Yeah, and then you talked about one of the first implications about dominion over the earth and the order, like the order that's built into creation.
Yep. Made in the image of, we're made in the image of God.
Yeah.
And the first thing God does is, all right, you're going to have dominion over the earth.
Right.
And have babies, multiply, fill the earth, rule it, and then sin.
Yeah, sin comes in. Yep.
And then, so there's lots of questions, obviously, out
Yeah.
of the origins of everything. But one of the questions that came to us, actually, had to do with variation in nature,
Yeah.
variation in plant life, animal life,
Yeah.
and also people.
Yeah.
So where did that come from?
Okay.
How do we address that?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question, actually. And the issue of variation actually comes up when we talk about evolution, right?
Right.
Because Darwinian evolution, even it's in its most basic form, macroevolution, this transition from species to species through mutation and variation, which is, we would say, is false. Macroevolution, we would say, is false.
Right.
We would look at evolution and say that there is variation inside of species, but that variation then doesn't transcend species. So, for example, you can't go from a monkey to a person. You can't go from a fish to a lizard. Those large-scale macro special changes are impossible. But you can have microevolution, and where we get that is actually from the Bible. It's actually fascinating. In the flood narrative in Genesis chapter 7, God is giving Noah instruction about bringing onto the ark two of every animal.
Right.
And we say, well, if it's two of every animal, there's so much diversity of the animal kingdom. Could you possibly have had two of every animal at that point? And the answer is not necessarily two of every animal that exists. For example,
exists right now.
Yeah, so 2 lions and 2 tigers. But we would say 2 of every kind. And we get that from Genesis chapter 7, verse 14. Actually, you pointed this out to me.
Yeah.
Verse 13, it says, on the same day, Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah and Noah's wife, and the 3 wives of his sons with him, entered the ark. They and every beast after its kind. Now, that kind is very important. After every beast after its kind. So the kind is like cats, right? Large cats.
It's a large category.
Yeah, it's a category of that kind of animal.
Got it.
And all the cattle after their kind, every creeping thing that creeps on the earth after its kind, every bird after its kind, all sorts of birds, right? So what's the point of the kinds? Well, you can have a category of a bird, and then that category can then offer variation that spreads out from that species into variation that's different. So we can have variations of all sorts of different things. So, for example, you can have different breeds of cow or different types of dogs, or even like wolf and dog, those kinds of things.
But that's all within
the one kind of a dog, right? So just the taxonomy of nature, and you take them at a certain point, and microevolution from those positions is possible. And so we would say, variation is totally a plausible thing.
Of course,
we should in fact see variation because over time, those things that exist should have created variation just simply because of the genetic order that's then micro mutations within that.
Of course. Now, then with human beings. Right. Okay.
So this gets more tricky. Or maybe not tricky, but interesting.
It does.
For example, we have variation in humanity, like you and me, right?
Yeah.
I am Caucasian, you are Asian. Where did we come from, right? Or did we evolve from different places and 2 different branches of the evolutionary tree? The answer is no, right? Everyone comes from one first set of human parents, Adam and Eve. So we believe in a literal, historical Adam and Eve. All humanity flows from that literal, historical first parents. But where did the variations in race come from? And the answer, I think, is from Genesis chapter 11, where we see the Tower of Babel. What's happening in the tower is that everyone at that point, after the flood, Noah and his sons, everyone's living together. They're all in one place in disobedience to God's command that you covered in the last video.
They're supposed to go out.
They're supposed to go out and have dominion over the earth. But instead, what do? They all stay in the same place. So what does God do? He confuses their languages, right? So he gives them all sorts of different languages, and then those languages cause them to isolate into groups, and then those groups then migrate apart because there's no reason to stay together anymore. So the variation in language yields variation in location, variation in location mixed with microevolution, mixed with variation
just amongst human beings.
Amongst human beings, we have now variation in terms of skin color and appearance and all those things. However, all still human beings, right? So no difference between us in terms of our ontological category. We're people, right? But just variations in terms of skin color, or other things, appearance type things.
Which, I mean, that opens up a whole can of worms into issues that are very relevant today.
Absolutely.
But actually, the Bible has such a good answer for all of those things.
Yeah.
Like ultimate answers, not just superficial, sort of like political or social answers, but actually like theological, divine answers.
Absolutely.
To help us think through race, ethnicity differences in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in a unifying way, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. The only way actually to get unification between races is through the text, because God divided the races, right? He divided peoples along language barriers, which creates racial division.
Right.
But then in Genesis chapter 3, it says that in Christ there's no longer Jew or Greek.
Right.
There's all of those divisions that existed because of man's sin. Now God brings together in Christ. So between us, there's zero difference in Christ, right?
Of course.
Because we're both children of God and brothers with Christ.
And the thing is, it's the same whether it's man or woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Child or adult or different social class or any of those dividing lines that the world has.
Yeah, the entire human race is leveled in one single swoop, and everything is the same.
Christ.
We all come to Christ in the same way.
And yet there's so much variety, which actually makes it more interesting and fun.
Yeah, totally. It's a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah, and that's what heaven's going to be, right? A reflection of that.
Totally.
That diversity. Unified in Christ, though.
Exactly, yeah. Revelation chapter 5.
Yeah.
We have the song, right? About
Absolutely.
from every tribe, tongue, and nation, and all of those people gathered together in his presence singing.
Yeah. It's awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Helpful.
Yep. Thanks.